10 years after the start of the fighting in Darfur, world leaders say it's time to rebuild. They're in Doha with an ambitious agenda to raise $7 billion in 2 days. But inside Darfur, the conflict is still raging, and many say the region needs stability more than cash. Can Darfur be rebuilt without peace on the ground? And with much of the world's attention now focused on other conflicts, is there even enough money to go around? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome. I'm Fawzia Ibrahim. Delegates from around the world have arrived in Doha for a conference aimed at rebuilding Darfur. Their objective: to raise billions of dollars to pay for infrastructure, food and clean water. Now, the UK took a lead role on Sunday, pledging $16.5 million before the conference even began. But other countries still have a long way to go to reach their goal of more than $7 billion. The UN says it needs $170 million a year to help refugees displaced by the conflict. Currently, it has only half that amount, and that doesn't include the cost of UN peacekeepers. Let's bring in our guests now. From New York, Ahmed Hussein Adam. He is the Foreign Secretary of the Rebel Justice and Equality Movement, which is boycotting the Doha Donor Conference. In London, Edward Thomas, a fellow at the Rift Valley Institute, and al-Mannan is at the summit here in Doha. He is the Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs at the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Mr. al-Mannan, can I first put this question to you? How optimistic are you that the Doha conference will achieve what it sets out to this time round?
Thank you for having me. We have been here since yesterday. We met with a lot of delegations coming here to participate in this very important conference that want to take Darfur from peace agreements, peace talks to development, to show people that through peace, through development, through reconstruction, we can make a real peace in Darfur. As OIC and after these contacts we have since yesterday, we are so optimistic that this conference will be very successful. And this conference, I think, will address a major question that after 10 years of war, destruction, let us take Darfur to another step. Let's take Darfur from relief, from emergency. Let them take these people to development, to reconstruction, and let us have a positive message to the people of Darfur that the entire world is with you, and that through peace and stability you can rebuild your country, and you can make Darfur really again powerful and prosperous.
That's certainly a very positive. That's a very positive message. But Edward Thomas, I just want to bring you in here. Is it time to talk development with Darfur, particularly given what's happening on the ground? Political instability. Rebels are still fighting across the region.
Well, certainly many people in Darfur would say that it's difficult to envisage how development can go ahead in the current situation of instability. That is to say, the model of development which works through planned budgets and states giving money and transfers to institutions on the ground. There's another kind of development going on in Darfur. It's often controlled by armed people, often informal armed groups, with links to army and government officials and links to armed groups. But it's it's not the kind of development that one envisages coming out of these international forums. It's people trying to make the best of a very desperate situation.
I just want to throw this particular question to Ahmed Hussein Adam now. Your organization has decided to boycott the Doha conference. Why is that?
Not only my organization, but actually the internally displaced persons right now in Darfur They demonstrated 2 days ago, and the refugees and civil society of Darfur and a lot of national stakeholders actually there against this conference. Actually, let's be very clear about this. The reconstruction and development of Darfur is a noble mission. We all want that actually to happen soon and to happen one day. But right now, what we need right now, and the people of Darfur need right now, is international will to end the violence and to end the genocide which is taking place right now in Darfur. As I said, the refugees and the ITPs, they made it very clear that their priority right now is not a development. Their priority right now is the international community to have will to stop the ongoing harassment and ongoing air bombardment and genocide against them. This is their real priority. You know, this conference, let's be very clear also about it. They just want to give a rosy and false picture about what's going on the ground. They just want to say that Darfur is in peace, while Darfur right now is at war. And I think I appeal to the international community, to the key players of the international community, and even to the state of Qatar. If they really want to help Darfur, they have to have the will and to support the end of violence, and even to implement the Security Council resolution which issued about Darfur, about the protection of civilians, about the protection of ITPs who are right now under attack and under enormous kind of aggression from the side of the government and its militias. That's the reality in Darfur. And I think what's going on right now is amount to be complicity with the government of Sudan, actually violation of human rights. And let's be very clear also, Khartoum regime and al-Bashir regime is indicted. Al-Bashir also indicted by the ICC. Abdurrahim Ahmed Sandi, the first minister, is indicted by the ICC. This conference actually about helping them and about actually helping them get out of their financial and economic crisis. And it's wrong. It's not for Darfur. It's about, for the regime and those who are supporting this conference.
That's a very interesting point, and we will get to that in just a minute. But let's take a look about what's actually happening on the ground. Now, as delegates try to map out a strategy for Darfur's development, let's remind ourselves of the human costs of the conflict. Now, hundreds of thousands of Darfur refugees are still living in neighboring Chad. And while many say they dream of going home, they're also afraid of what awaits them. Mae Welsh reports from a refugee camp in eastern Chad.
It looks like Darfur, the same soil, the same trees. But to Jamaluddin, a Darfur refugee, this isn't home, and it never will be.
Exile is bitter. The minute security is restored, that's our country, and we're going back. But up to now, there's no security. There is fleeing, fighting, and airstrikes. Our people are still being punished, and the world is silent. So how can we return?
Over 250,000 Darfur refugees have been waiting 10 years for the right conditions to return home, as the war the U.S. once infamously called genocide has fallen into the ranks of forgotten conflicts. The UN is now struggling to find funds just to feed and protect them. Basic health care and education may be scaled back, security withdrawn, and their calories cut in half, even as malnutrition is reappearing in the camps.
All attention is drawn to the Mali situation and the Syria situation. I understand that these are also new emergencies, but we still have people in protracted situation, and we have no right to leave them alone. They have to be treated with dignity. The dignity costs money.
The challenge is multiplying. Jamia Juma Mohammed was 12 when she fled the fighting in 2003. Now she's a mother with a new baby. Today, nearly half of Darfur refugees were born in exile or remember nothing of their homeland. And for some older refugees like Ishaq, the bad memories are so vivid they'd rather live here another decade than risk going back.
The government came with horses and tanks, and above us were 2 helicopters. There were no questions asked. They just started beating my cousin and my uncle with rifle butts. They killed both of them in front of me. We've sat here for 10 years, and maybe we can sit here for another 10 years, because to live is better than to die. We're afraid, that's all. They'll kill us.
Refugees are worried new generations won't know where they came from. or who they blame for pushing them out.
We
have to give them a background, because if they don't know anything about Darfur, that means an entire generation has lost its identity and lost its nation.
10 years on, Darfur's refugees don't want to forget, and they don't want to be forgotten. Mae Welsh for Inside Story at the Brejing refugee camp in eastern Chad.
That's definitely a world that's far removed from the Doha conference. Mr. al-Mannan Bakait, in the last few days, we've seen several protests in these refugee camps, protests against the Doha conference. How do you justify talking development in Darfur when the situation on the ground, as we've just seen, is not stable?
Well, I think that the documentary you show right now, people now they need hope. We should speak hope now. We should speak a new language. We should tell people that through peace, development, reconstruction, that they can rebuild their lives and they can have a real hope and they can build their life really and they can be successful. So this is the language I think that Darfurians should speak now. And this is the main message out of this conference.
And Ahmad Hussein Adam, do you agree that this is the time now to talk about development? After all, there may not be a perfect time for Darfur to talk about development. Why not now?
These people are out of touch because, as I said, the ITPs there who can talk for them, they already demonstrated and they asked for the end of violence. They don't know about development. Their priority right now, they at the end of violence and the end of genocide. This is what they said, and very clear. And who is going actually to channel any kind of money that, the donors, paid or something for the ITPs and for refugees? Nobody actually is going to guarantee that. Al-Bashir is in full control. There is no partner from the side of the people of Darfur who can do that, any kind of thing like that. Al-Bashir regime now signed more than 40 agreements, and they didn't actually implement any kind of disagreements. As I said, I'm very clear, our people need, protection. Our people need the end of violence and the end of genocide. I'm just telling you, even the peacekeepers, UNIMIT, they cannot even, get access to the vast, part of Darfur. They cannot get access. Even the aid workers and even the international community members, they cannot get permits actually to go around Darfur. And one of the regime, top advisors said one day that, even Niala under threat, it could, go on under any time or something like that. This was what's going on in Darfur. And we are not against development. As I said, development is a noble cause and reconstruction is a noble cause. But right now, the people of Darfur, they need protection and they need the end of violence and the end of genocide. This is their priority. But what I'm saying is right now, those who are organizing this conference, the state of Qatar and even the government of Sudan, they want to give a false impression that there is peace. People, they want development, but cannot take development while they're under attack, from the air bombardment as well as from the militias on the ground. How can you tell people to speak about development while they're in enormous
on that point, Edward Thomas, can I just bring you in? It's a very difficult situation, isn't it? The delegates want to help with the development in Darfur. Those in Darfur want political stability. Can you have both issues or both things going on at the same time, or do you need stability before development?
Well, I think there is a kind of, what Ahmed was saying about development and reconstruction is important to consider. There is a kind of development, there is a kind of economic life that happens without reconstruction, when there's chaos, when there's violence going on. And that's the kind of development that you're having. There are big changes to the economic structure of Darfur. There's massive rates of urbanization. People who lived off common land before, or mostly lived off common land, are now living the life of money. That's a very deep social change. You have productive resources in Darfur being assigned to militias. You have people being pushed into ethnic boxes and then being given better or worse economic opportunities according to which ethnic box they get pushed into. So that's the kind of development that's going on, and it's a development that, it's a kind of economic development that often polarizes people, that separates people, that sets them against each other. Now, I think that I agree with both speakers that development is praiseworthy and very much needed in Darfur, and people are longing for it. But the development that goes through institutions, you know, government ministries and hospitals and schools and so forth, that needs security to happen first. The problem is the security file in Sudan is a very complicated one. And even though that there, you know, people kind of took their eyes off the ball in Darfur to a certain extent, because some of the things that people thought were necessary to achieve security, a new peace agreement, an end to arms transfers from Libya or Chad, those things have happened. They've happened 2 years ago, and yet things haven't got better yet.
Well, let's take a look at what's actually happening on the ground. Now, the donor conference is just the latest step in a peace process that's still ongoing. Violence broke out in March 2003 between the government and rebels from Darfur. Nearly 300,000 people were killed over a decade of fighting and famine. In 2011, the rebels signed a peace agreement with the government during talks here in the Qatari capital, but not everyone accepted the deal. In February, hundreds were killed during fighting over a gold mine in North Darfur. Dozens of villages were destroyed and more than 100,000 people displaced. Now, Mr. al-Mannan Bakait, no doubt the donor conference is very noble, as we all agree here, but how do you actually hope to have any sort of progress while people have no hope in Darfur?
Well, please let me just clarify things. How we see things, we as international organizations and intergovernmental organizations, we see things as follows. You know, the Doha process is a very successful process. It's a peace process that started in 3 years.
Is it a peace process? Is it a successful process, though? There are parties who have not.
Sure.
But there are parties who have not signed up to that peace process, and this is where we're seeing the conflict on the ground.
No, please, if you allow me, I think that yesterday we witnessed the signature of an important faction in Doha yesterday. I think this is the positive mushroom effect of the peace process of Doha agreement. Now there is an agreement recognized by all the international community, and I think there is a huge effort now undertaken by the government, by the Darfurians themselves, by the international community to push more Darfur factions to come to the peace process, as was mentioned in Doha here. So
all right, Mr. Ahmed Hussein, can I just ask you that question? Are you agreeable to the peace process? Do you think other factions will come to this peace process?
We are for peace, but what kind of peace? We are for peace that address the root causes of the conflict. We don't want jobs. And what happened yesterday in Doha is another big mistake, which actually is undermining the whole integrity of the so-called Doha process. Because those who brought there, actually they are the government people. They are some individuals, and they bring them and that and give them, you know, some sort of media coverage or something and sign agreement, and nothing is going to happen because they have no presence on the ground. They have no connection with the real people actually on the ground. They just people coming there and keep, you know, signing agreement, and nothing is going on. Well, the problem, the fundamental problem is this regime actually cannot actually address the root causes and have any kind of political solution to this problem at all. They sign a lot of agreement, even the Doha agreement. The previous one hasn't been implemented. The components of justice hasn't been implemented. The compensation hasn't been implemented. These people who signed the agreement, they cannot go to the ITP camps to defend their agreement. The ITPs right now, they are demonstrating.
Mr. al-Mannan Bakait, is that a fair accusation that the Doha conference is not in touch with the reality on the ground?
Well, today we listened to Dr. Tijani Sise, who is the head of Darfur Authority today. He made a fantastic report to the meeting today. He spoke about the progress. It's true, he spoke about problems that he needs more support from the international community to settle. But he spoke about a huge progress within the peace process in the region. At the same time, let me say that also in this conference we are not speaking, it's not a pledging conference. It's a conference that's going to discuss all the aspects of the question in Darfur. We are going to speak how to develop health, education, agriculture, and so, but they are speaking transparency, good governance, human rights. All this is a part of this conference. So I think this is a very important conference. Participation in this conference and its success is crucial for the peace process in Darfur.
Mr. Edward Thomas, how do you actually develop a credible, inclusive political process in order for development to take place? Where is the priority here? Where do you even start?
Well, I think there's two kind of big answers to that question available in Sudan at the moment. One is the answer which is you hear from mostly from rebel groups, which is that there needs to be a kind of comprehensive reformulation of what Sudan is. An attempt to eradicate long-standing patterns of regional inequalities, of imbalances in wealth and power between different groups of Sudanese people, and the way those imbalances have been spread out across the vast country. So they're kind of spatial, they're regional imbalances, and that requires kind of constitutional change and an inclusive government at the centre. The other approach, which is, I guess, the approach implied by this conference, and also the approach which the government perhaps favours, is that by amassing enough wealth and, you know, having it might be able to recoup the security control that it once had over Darfur, so it can more or less decide what's happening in Darfur. You won't have a war over a gold mine, which is what you had in the last couple of months. The government will provide security for that kind of productive endeavour, and at the same time the government would have enough money to kind of compensate or draw in or co-opt people who are currently unwilling to go to make a deal with the government.
Mr. Al-Mannan Bakai,
can I bring you,
we're just running out of time here now. Mr. Al-Mannan Bakai, just one final say from you. Really, 10 years on from Darfur, and we haven't seen much progress. What do you think needs to happen in order for us to see some sort of progress in the region?
I think that Darfur is going on the right track for the time being, especially after the Doha process. There is a lot of problems. We need to help the Sudanese government. We need to help all the factions. We need to send a positive message to the people of Darfur that through development, reconstruction, they will see the real fruits of the peace. I think we should address really the real needs of the people on the ground, and we should call for all Darfurians to be positive, to come to peace, and to stop destroying their country. And peace now through Doha process, this is the only way forward really to help Darfur and Darfurians.
Ahmed Hussein Adam, last things from you, please, last words from you, very briefly. What do you think needs to happen 10 years on after the Darfur conflict? What needs to happen to see progress on the ground?
I just want to say you cannot help the genocidal regime to help the people of Darfur, because the genocidal regime of al-Bashir is the one who is killing the people of Darfur right now. So you cannot help them. What they need from this conference is just to solve their own financial problems. And actually, this conference is going to help a genocidal regime and an indicted president by the ICC. This is very clear. If they really want to help the people of Darfur, they have to implement the Security Council resolution to provide the people of Darfur with protection, actually from the ongoing genocide, and to protect the people of Darfur from the harassment of the militias. The people of Darfur right now, they need security and they need protection. We are not against development, but right now this is not the paramount priority for the people of Darfur. We have to be very clear. The Islamic Conference and the Arab League and the state of Qatar, they have some leverage on the government of Sudan. Let them use that leverage to influence the al-Bashir government to stop the ongoing genocide against the people of Darfur. Our people actually are dignified people. They cannot buy their human rights with money at all. And as I said, you know, with these current circumstances, nothing is going to happen for reconstruction and development. And I know that Tijani Sese can make a lot of reports, rosy reports, actually in this hotel or something. But the reality on the ground is different. There is a lot of people that are demonstrating and sending him a lot of messages, a memorandum asking him to stop what he is going right now. And he cannot go to them right now in the IDP camps to tell them about his agreement and any kind of agreement.
Right.
There is nothing called Doha process.
Right.
The Doha process is a big failure. Yes. Unfortunately,
we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking to us. Thanks to our guests, Ahmed Hussein Adam, Edward Thomas and Atta al-Mannan Bakai. And thank you too for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. Send us your feedback via email at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Thanks again for watching. Goodbye for now.